Hello, Robert Brown. This is Kerry Duke. How are you today?
Doing well. How you doing, Terry?
Doing awesome. I know we have a great set of questions today. Very popular topic. I see a lot of traffic for this main question, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. Now, Robert Brown, you're the president of Yiptel, correct?
That is
Just want to
correct.
make sure everybody just want to make sure everybody knows who you are. Um, you're based out of Utah, but you do business all over the country and all over the world, right?
We do, yes. We have customers and clients all over the country and around the world, just as you said.
Okay, very good. So here's the question of the day, and it's the main topic, and and we're going to be talking about the difference between hosted and versus premise-based VoIP solutions. So what I'd like you to go through real quick before you talk about the difference, explain what a hosted situation is versus a premise situation, and then explain what the difference is.
Okay, I can absolutely do that for you today. Especially because, Yiptel, we got started clear back in 1970 when we sold one of the very first privately owned phone systems in the entire country at the divestiture of the Bell companies. So prior to that, the phone companies, the Bell companies at that point would provide all of the dial tone, all of the services, all of the physical equipment. But the government came in and says, hey, we should allow, that's a monopoly, and we want to be able to allow competition within that marketplace. And so they delivered a solution at the divestiture that says, hey, we're going to allow these other companies to come in, and now organizations can own their own premise-based physical equipment. And so we started selling physical premise-based phone systems clear back in 1970. And we've literally, obviously, installed thousands upon thousands of these solutions over our 40-plus year history. So a physical premise-based system is the equipment that you would purchase. It's certainly gotten smaller. Our new applications that we sell are 2U little rack mount appliances that run hundreds of phones. And back in the old days, those would have been cabinets and rooms and all kinds of things to run that. But essentially, it's a physical appliance that's located on your location, and then the carrier brings in dial tone that we connect into that, and then we connect the physical phones throughout the organization into that as well. So that was what was called that's a premise-based, on your premise, that's a premise-based phone system solution. A hosted phone system means that there is no equipment for the physical phone system typically placed on site other than the physical phones. So we bring a connection to you from the internet, either a private connection or an open internet connection to you, and then we ride that connection and send your phone calls across that internet protocol. That's why it's called voice over IP, is that we're using the internet protocol, we're sending your voice over that, and it's now terminating on that IP phone that sits on your desk and plugs into the computer network just like your computers do. So in a hosted environment, our central servers located in a data center or multiple data centers as it may be, we term that as coming from the cloud. So we're coming across the internet into your business, delivering connectivity to the physical phone or the soft phone or other types of devices. But for this purpose, we'll say to the physical phone that sits on your desk. And so there isn't a phone system or equipment in-house. There's not a carrier other than us delivering dial tone to you, because we provide all of the dial tone, the long distance, all of those parts and pieces in that one simple device. So the reason that people are going to that, especially in that smaller, that under 50 market, is almost exclusively hosted these days, because if I'm going to go out and buy a phone system, and let's say I've got a phone system with 50 phones, it's probably going to cost me $25,000, $30,000. Well, rather than putting up that $25,000 to $30,000, if I want to come and I want it hosted, then a company like ours at Yiptel, we will provide all of the physical equipment, everything they need, and we'll do it for a low monthly cost versus a large upfront capital cost. So one of my typical first questions to the organization is, which would be more beneficial to you from a financial aspect? Would it be better for you? Because I typically find there's companies that say, look, we are a purchase company. We own our equipment, we pay for it, this is exactly how we do business. And so for those type of companies, physical premise-based is a great solution, and that's what they're looking for. But I find also a lot more companies actually tend to be more of the opinion of, I'd rather keep that capital and keep that cash, and I'd rather outsource this all to you. Because with a physical premise system, not only do you put in the equipment and pay the upfront costs, but you also end up paying all the maintenance costs. So every time you need to service or maintain the system, you're calling the company that you purchased it from, and they're either doing it remotely, or they could be rolling a truck out to you. But either way, you're paying $120, $150 an hour for them to service and maintain the equipment. You're also paying for costs on a yearly basis, typically, for the manufacturer to provide new updates, because all the new systems are very software-based. So most of those have a yearly software subscription that go along with those. So if you take all the costs for your personnel to manage and maintain it, take the cost of the physical equipment, and then take the cost of the service and maintenance and those parts and pieces, add those all up and compare them side to side, most companies look at it and say, yes, hosted is a much smarter investment for us, because it also protects us from a technology standpoint, not just from a dollar standpoint, but also from technology. Because a physical system that you purchase, in the old days, people would keep those for 10, 12, 15 years before they would change them. The new systems will continue to run just like that, and you can keep it for 15 years. One of the concerns, though, is that as technologies or applications are changing so rapidly today, that a hosted system continues to maintain that. And some of the other premise-based systems are not as flexible in that. They're getting much better because they're software-based, but then again, you're paying those costs. So it's really, our job as a company is, and what's unique about Yiptel, is the fact that we offer both solutions. And we really sit down with the customer and client and design the right solution for them. And bottom line, sometimes it is premise-based, and other times it is hosted. And sometimes even we start them with hosted, and as they grow and their needs and applications, maybe they decide, hey, we want to go premise-based, because we can deliver the same technologies in either format. So that's very unique to our company, is that with the others, they provide a single solution, and they try to fit you, hey, here's our hosted solution, and then the premise guys over here say, hey, here's our premise solution. Well, we sit in the middle and say, well, yeah, there are advantages to both. It's not that, because the hosted guy is going to tell you, oh, premise is old school and you don't want to go that way, and the premise guy is going to tell you, oh, well, that's unreliable and Voip is not the way you want to go, you don't want to go hosted. And the bottom line is in the middle is where it tends to be the truth. And that's where sometimes, depending on your needs, hosted is better. Other times, depending on your needs, running premise-based is going to be better for your organization. And with Yiptel, we deliver both, work with you both, and as I mentioned, we even sometimes take companies, start them on one platform and move them to another, because they have complete flexibility within our solution. So when it comes to hosted versus premise, I don't really subscribe to versus premise. I think, yes, hosted, it's really about what are your needs and applications versus another company's. And yours may say, hey, we should go hosted, where the next people, depending on their needs and applications, they maybe need to go premise-based. And that's the beauty of working with Yiptel, is we don't have to force you into one or the other. We can teach you and help you to understand the differences and benefits of each, and then you can make the right decision for your organization.
Okay, wow. Lot of information there in a few minutes. Let's
Sorry
let's unpack that a little bit.
about
Okay, so in the world of Yiptel and Robert Brown, there is no preferential treatment for one type of system, or is that correct?
That's correct. From our perspective, there isn't really a preference. It's all about the client and their needs and applications. And we have
Okay.
both technologies, we have multiple platforms, and the reason why is because there are definite benefits to both. And there's benefits financially, there's different benefits functionally, there's different benefits. Each company is very unique, and we treat them that way. And we look at them because one of the, I guess, my contentions with a lot of the hosted companies is they provide a certain subset of functions and features and think, oh, well, we're the newest, coolest kid on the block, but yet they can't do some of the things that the older technology could do. And so depending on the needs and applications of that company, sometimes premise is a better fit. But then on the flip side of that, the exact same. Sometimes hosted is a much better fit for that organization. Especially if they're distributed in multiple sites and remote workers and mobile employees, and it really is independent to each individual company, and that's how we treat them, and that's why I think we're such a unique anomaly in the market, is that everybody has kind of chosen a side. They want to choose one or the other, but that's not how we approach it, because there are definite benefits, and we deliver those to our clients according to their needs, even if those needs change.
All right. So when a business is looking at the opportunity or the need to upgrade, update their phone solutions or phone systems, and they come to Yiptel with the preconceived notions like, Robert, I want to know about this hosted solution. Um, it sounds to me like you're going to have to back that conversation up and say, well, let's figure out what your requirements are, what your needs are, before we can determine if hosted is really the right road to go down.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest mistakes, and why we continue to replace system after system from our competitors, is the fact that as they come into the solution, they offer what they have, and they try to make that customer's needs and applications fit within their box. And then they come and say, well, this isn't working for us. We don't have these functions. We just replaced the other day, but there was a flower shop in town, and they have 8 locations, and a competitor came in and delivered a solution to all those 8 different locations. It was another carrier, and they didn't understand about the call center needs for that organization, because they do probably 90% of their business in February. And they have a huge 25-seat call center, and the solution that this carrier delivered didn't provide them the call center management tools and applications that they needed. So they didn't ask the right questions. And that's really where I think we just do an amazing job, is after the 40 years of history of this organization, we've learned all of the right questions and applications to ask our clients. So we work very closely. That's always the first step, is before we talk about any solutions or all the cool and amazing technologies that we have, none of that really matters unless it benefits the company. So we have to make sure that we understand, and our people are trained very intently on exactly how to go in and understand the needs. Now, we're going to ask you a lot more questions than the other guy that's going to ask you how many phones do you have and how many people, and then send you over a quote. And for some people, they're like, well, why are you asking me so many questions? Just send me that quote. But I'll tell you the reason why we do is we work very hard to make sure that we understand the applications that you have, so that we can design the right solutions. Because in our business, we really look at ourselves as consultants, and we sit down and try to understand those needs and then design the right solution for them. Because there's a lot of technologies that many of the clients we're working with don't understand that we have those types of solutions and ways to benefit their business. And we personally feel like that's one of our great strengths, is that we can then understand what they're doing and not only meet those needs, but also be able to make suggestions about other things that we could do to improve their business and the ways they do and the way they do things. You know, to give you an example, we were working with a company. We sat down with them, and on their incoming calls, their operators, they were very intent on customer service. And their operators would live answer the phone call, find out who they were, and then transfer it off to the next department. Well, unfortunately, the next department then would say, oh, well, who are you? Give me your account number. Give me the same information that you just found that we just asked you before. So with one of our solutions, we had a way to, on an incoming call, allow them to put the customer name and the client number that they were working on, and then when they transferred that call, that information was sent to the next person. Well, that took out, 15, 20 seconds of time per call, as well as from a customer service standpoint. Now when they transferred, they could say, hey, thanks for calling, Mr. Brown. I see that we're working on this case number and that type of thing for you today. So it changed the entire experience. But they didn't even realize or think about that. But as we looked at their organization and how they do business, we were able to make suggestions like that. So that's also one of our great strengths, is knowing the technologies, being so involved with the company to know and understand what they're doing, and then we can now make recommendations on new solutions on how we can affect their business and their bottom line.
Love that example. Absolutely love it, because I have been on the other end of that conversation. It's like, I just gave you that information. So yeah, okay. Here's the thing, though. Most of your competitors are probably doing this in reverse, or maybe the company that needs the service is actually driving this conversation in reverse by saying, I have heard that I can save a lot of money by going hosted versus owning. Now, I heard you describe it earlier that it depends on what they're actually doing and how long they're going to keep equipment, but the argument that I keep hearing on the own versus hosted situation comes down to, how long are you going to own that equipment? And when people put the pen to the paper, they're saying that hosted is always more expensive because you're basically just leasing it forever versus owning it. Now, that conversation seems to be secondary to what your needs are and how your solution can be tailored to what your business is actually doing. So how do you combat that question about the cost savings over time when you're taking a look at a hosted versus a premise-based solution?
Yeah, see, I like that term, that, to kind of combat that, because that's exactly what we don't do. Our competitors have to combat that, right? They have to fight against that and say, hey, hosted guys, you guys cost more, and the premise guys are, saying, oh, you don't want to do. That's just it. It's not about really combating one or the other, because it's totally valid. There are valid points on both sides. And the valid point is that for some companies, after the 3 or 4 years where they would have paid off the equipment, had they put it on a lease, then their costs would be less. And that is absolutely true in some organizations and some instances. But it's very easy on the flip side for the hosted guys to come in and show 15 examples of exactly the opposite, because especially in that smaller market, when you get down in that 20 and under, it really, by the time, so real quickly, you take a phone system, let's say it's 20, so you're somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000 or something like that. So you got to put up that money, you got to run a lease on that. You're going to maintain it, you're going to have those yearly costs, you're going to have your employee costs, all those types of things that come into it. In most cases, in that 20 and under market, we can actually come in and for the same cost as the dial tone. So let's say you had a PRI in this company, and it was, $400 or something like that. In most cases, we can come in with the phone and the internet service for, if not exactly the same, maybe even a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but almost that same exact number that they're just paying for dial tone. So for the same cost they're going to pay for dial tone, without having to buy all the equipment and hardware, we can provide the entire service. So the bottom line is you can have the hosted guys can show you exact examples where, yes, they are less money and they are cheaper than owning your own equipment, and that's typically in that 20 and under market. As it scales and grows, if you got 2,000 seats, then that is going to be a little bit different, because you can probably buy a system, and after three years, and you put it on a 3-year lease with a $1 buyout and buy that system. The reason is because your dial tone costs for a company with 2,000 seats is a much smaller percentage. We call it trunkage in our industry. So I may need 50 phone lines to run somebody with 200 or 300 seats, and I'm at 25 or 10% trunkage versus on a smaller organization, I'm at 50% trunkage. So you're paying more in dial tone, but as the economies of scale grow, then now that comes down. So that's why in larger organizations, hosted tends to be not quite as cost effective from that perspective. But then on the flip side, they'll come back again and say, okay, well, now add your telecom guy that's going to manage that for you, that, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year. Take those into account and the time and effort that your people are going to spend. Take a look at the technology life cycle and the flexibility, and also one of the biggest ones I hear from organizations that are larger that are going hosted is the fact that it's the redundancy aspect. I don't want a physical piece of equipment on my site and location that if it goes down, now my 2,000 employees are out of work. Now we can't connect to them. Where in a hosted example, they've got cell phone applications. They've got all kinds of different ways to connect, even if the internet goes down. Well, I can still take calls on my cell phone that are now connected as part of my extension. So it's not necessarily all. It makes me laugh when people talk all about it's all cost and it's all a numbers thing. It's not. Numbers certainly play a big part of it, but it's really about finding the right application for that company. And the beauty is that like I said, sometimes it's hosted, sometimes it's premise. But we don't have to choose from our organization and try to force you into one or the other, because that's the only thing we sell. We deliver both because there are great. So I guess the whole essence of this conversation is, you know what? I agree with them both, and I'm on both sides. And that's the beauty, is that with our company, we can deliver what's right for the client versus what we provide as a company.
Excellent. Love it. So here's the aspect, but I want to be very, very, give you the opportunity to speak to this exact point, and that is, how does Yiptel compare to the competition? And this is not strictly premise versus hosted. This is Yiptel compared to your competitors who are offering, I guess in most cases, one or the other solutions. And so you've touched on it, but I want you to give a little more clarification on how Yiptel differs.
Yeah, so a couple things that I would mention there is number one, somebody can become a hosted voice over IP provider and stick a server in their basement and start providing service. And I know that because I compete against companies like that all the time, where this IT guy decided he wanted to start his own Voip company, and so now he's got service and clients and that type of thing running off of some server he threw somewhere. So you have to be careful and understand that there's a huge difference in the type of companies and providers. So you have both aspects. You have the very large carriers, the AT&Ts or that type of thing. XO is another major player. Windstream is a major player that's out there. So very large from the carrier standpoint, all the way down to the guy that, like I said, has a server sitting in his basement providing service. So Yiptel is a carrier. We are not as large as some of those, like Windstream and some of those types of carriers. But what's unique about us is that we are an actual carrier running carrier-grade equipment, redundant, a complete solution that you can count on and run your business on. But the other side of that is that we're also very flexible, and where those carriers have come from that world of delivering circuits, and they're great at that, we've come from 40 years of delivering premise-based phone system solutions. And when it comes to designing a solution that includes, we can provide the circuits, the dial tone, the internet, the long distance, your MPLS, your entire network, we can design and implement that. But what's very unique about us is that, again, we're going to go through a very detailed process to help you make sure that you put the right equipment in that's going to benefit your business. And that's where over the primary main carriers that are out there, that's where we're finding great success, is that we really understand the needs and applications, and all the way from our sales teams to our support teams and the way that we provide the support. We're not calling in and making a choice of 6 different products. If you need, cable service, if you need hosting service, if you need, all these different types of things, we have specialized teams that work specifically on dial tone, internet, and providing that phone system service in whatever method that may be. So that's very unique about us in the type of carrier we are. We're very unique from the perspective about how we provide physical equipment on premise as well as hosted. There's one other little uniqueness that I'd throw in there as well, is that for some companies, if they're under contract with one of those carriers, then we actually will put a physical system on site to plug into their traditional physical dial tone connection that they've had, and then we host that solution for them on site. So even if they're under contract with a carrier, they can come to us and we can deliver the solution in a hosted environment, but that actually sits in the back closet on their premise. But companies love that because now they can move to the newer technology. They can do that today even though they're under contract with their dial tone services, still use that carrier for the dial tone, but now we provide all the services and the whole hosted piece, managed, maintained, one fixed monthly cost that they can count on for their budget. They love that aspect and that perspective. So again, it's really about just designing those right needs and applications, and that's what makes us different from a company standpoint. When it comes to products, we're also not a one-trick pony, right? So we have multiple products, multiple platforms, and that's what allows us then to take that and design that solution for that company. Because I don't have just one thing I provide. Because in all the companies, you should see the variety of companies. We do everything from government and hospitals and healthcare and all of those types of technologies down to the organization, the insurance company with 6 people on the corner. And so there are such a dramatic needs of advanced call centers and multiple queuing and reporting capabilities and system integrations and CRM and all of that we do. And each company is very unique and different. But again, the beauty is we have multiple products, multiple platforms, multiple solutions, and we just sit down and listen and understand and work with you to understand what you're trying to accomplish, make some suggestions of new ways that our technology can benefit you, and we work together to find that exact right solution for your organization. So that's what makes us different.
Just in a nutshell, that's what makes you different, right?
Yep. Yeah, sorry, I get a little long-winded down there. I love this stuff. So.
Well, no, and it shows in the conversations that we have that you do have a genuine enthusiasm for the service that you provide, and I think that's great. I mean, a lot of people, they love what they do, but it doesn't come across in their conversation. All right, so let's wrap this up with one really, just, this is a softball question to you, but I think it's important that people understand this is your answer to this question, because no matter what service a company provides, or what product a company sells, they should be able to answer this question, and they should do it succinctly, and I believe you're going to be able to do this also. But it's, why should a business consider Yiptel for their telecom solutions?
Absolutely. They should consider Yiptel for their telecom solutions because we deliver all of the products and services that they need with guaranteed response times and service and technicians and people, the support they need, and the products they need. And we do that in a very consultative approach where we design the right solutions for their company. And bottom line, we understand how critical those business communications are to an organization. And we designed our teams to provide 24/7 live answer direct to engineers. You're not going to call in and create a ticket and then have to wait for somebody to call you back. Who needs that type of support? That's not the type of support that we provide. We deliver direct access, direct to the engineers. It's, a one call to resolve is our slogan, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So it's really about the entire breadth. It's the products we deliver, it's the way that we deliver those, and then that's certainly in the way that we support and provide support to our clients. So maybe that wasn't as succinct as I needed to be, but we definitely provide that end-to-end solution in a personal way. That is one of our benefits over the major carriers, is that when you call us and work with us, you're going to be working with us, and we're going to call you by name, and you're going to know who you are, and we're going to know who you are and what your business does, and we're a partnership with you, and that's what we're thrilled about.
Awesome, Robert. I think you answered that question perfectly. I mean, it's more than an elevator speech, but I think it needs to be more than an elevator speech. We're not in an elevator.
That's right.
So, all right, Robert Brown, tell us exactly how somebody can reach you.
Absolutely, yeah. You can reach us either online at yiptel.com, which is YIPTEL. By the way, that stands for Your IP Telephone, just so you know. Yiptel.com, or you can reach us on our 800 number, which is 800-752-6110.
Okay, thanks, Robert Brown. This is Kerry Duke for Mike Howard, the telecom expert, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. See you later.